I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 7 years. We were pretty much your typical married couple. No big arguments, no dramatic fights, just a quiet life that I thought was solid. We had our routines. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, and I was running my small landscaping business. Honestly, I thought we were happy. Or at least I did. Lately, though, there were little things that started to bug me. She was more distant, seemed distracted during our talks, and would sometimes get defensive when I tried to ask what was wrong. I'd notice her phone buzzing constantly, and she'd hide it quick, like she was hiding something from me. I didn't say much at first, just shrugged it off as work stress or maybe her being preoccupied. But deep down, I felt annoying that something wasn't right. It all started to come apart about 3 weeks ago. She told me she'd be staying late at work one Friday night. Said there was a big client presentation coming up, and she'd be working late to prepare. I remember kissing her goodbye that evening, feeling a little proud of her dedication. She looked gorgeous as always, and I told her to be careful. She just waved me off a little too quickly and said she'd be home by 9. I went to bed that night, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how strange she seemed when she left. She was rushed, almost nervous. The next morning, I decided to check her phone, just a quick peek, nothing malicious, just a gut feeling. I unlocked it while she was in the shower. That's when I saw the messages. Not just work emails or benign stuff, but texts that made my stomach drop. Flirty, suggestive, and downright inappropriate, from her boss, Mark. They'd been texting back and forth for months, hiding it from me. I scrolled through the messages, and it was worse than I thought. There were pictures of her in bed with him, nothing explicit, but enough to tell me they'd been sleeping together. She'd even called him babe once. All the while, she was telling me she was working late, going to yoga classes, doing everything she claimed. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My blood boiled. How could she lie to my face like that? How long had this been going on? I was stunned, hurt, angry all at once. I didn't know what to do at first. I sat there staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. Then I heard her coming out of the shower. The moment I saw her face, I knew I had to confront her. I grabbed her phone, showed her the messages, and her reaction was a mix of shock and outrage. She started lying immediately, said it was all a misunderstanding, that Mark was just a friend, that I was paranoid. Told me she loved me, that I was overreacting, but I could see right through her. The way she looked at him, the texts, they weren't just friends. And she knew I'd find out. That's when the real mess began. I felt crushed. Not just because she cheated, but because she manipulated everyone around her, including me. She spun stories about how I was controlling, jealous, insecure, made me look like the bad guy while she was out there screwing her boss. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. All those late nights, those little lies, turns out they were part of something bigger. And now I was left with this gut-wrenching feeling of betrayal, wondering how I'd ever trust her again. After I showed her those messages, Lisa's face went white for a second, then red with anger. She started yelling, calling me all sorts of names: paranoid, insecure, jealous. Said I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me, that Mark was just a work friend, and that I was ruining what we had. She even had the nerve to say I was overreacting because I didn't trust her. That's when I realized how good she was at twisting things around, making me feel like I was losing my mind. She tried to turn it around, telling me I was the one at fault for not paying enough attention, for not being romantic enough, or whatever bullshit she threw at me. She said I was the one who pushed her away, that she needed some excitement, some passion. I was stunned. I couldn't believe her audacity. Her words felt like a slap. She was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself. Meanwhile, I knew what I saw, what I felt in my gut. I couldn't just brush this off. The worst part was how she kept denying everything, even when I had the proof right in front of her. She kept lying, saying she never cheated, that Mark was just a friendly coworker, even as her voice trembled and her eyes darted around. I felt like I was losing control. All the trust we'd built, gone in a matter of minutes. I started crying, not because I was weak, but because I was angry and hurt. I'd never thought she'd do this to me, not in a million years. And yet here we were. I told her she needed to leave. I couldn't look at her, couldn't stand to see her deny everything anymore. She shot back with more lies, said she was sorry, that she loved me, that it was a mistake. She said she'd stop seeing Mark, that it was just a fling, just a moment of weakness. But I didn't believe her. The trust was shattered. I packed her bags, told her she could stay with her sister for a while. I needed time to think, to cool down, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. That night was the worst. I stayed up, drinking, staring at the ceiling, feeling this emptiness I'd never known before. All I could think about was how she manipulated everyone, how she lied about everything, and how I was left holding the pieces. I kept replaying everything she said, her crying, her promises to change, her calling me insecure. I realized how much I loved her, but also how much I hated her for what she did. It was a confusing mix of heartbreak and rage, and I didn't know how to process it. The next day, I started digging. I needed answers, really needed to understand what I was dealing with. I called some of her friends, her sister, anyone who might know more about her recent behavior. Most of them didn't see anything unusual, but a couple mentioned she'd been acting stressed, distracted, and that Mark was always around her. That confirmed what I already suspected. She'd been sneaking around, hiding this affair from everyone, including me. It felt like my entire world was falling apart, and I was only just beginning to realize how deep the deception went. Over the next few days, I sank into a kind of numbness. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand the truth, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She was good at lying, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I could believe anything she said anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she had played me, telling me she was working late, that she was exhausted from her job, that she loved me, while behind my back she was with Mark. It felt like a punch in the gut every time I remembered those little lies she told to cover her tracks. I decided I had to see her again, face to face, to get some kind of closure. I reached out and told her I needed to talk, just us, no one else involved. She agreed to meet at a coffee shop nearby. When she sat across from me, she looked different, more confident, maybe even smug. She tried to act like everything was normal, like she hadn't just betrayed me so brutally. She told me she was sorry for hurting me, that she loved me, and that she'd never meant for it to happen. Said Mark was just a fling, just a mistake. That she did want to lose everything we had over some stupid affair. But I saw through her. I knew she was trying to manipulate me again, make me feel guilty so I'd forgive her. I wanted to smash her face in, honestly. How could she sit there and lie so effortlessly? I told her I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore, that I wanted the truth, what was really going on between her and Mark. She played the victim card, said I was accusing her unfairly, that I was paranoid and possessive. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me intentionally. But I didn't buy it anymore. I could see her for what she was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd been cheating on me for months. That day, I realized I couldn't stay in this marriage pretending everything was okay. It was a lie, just like her words. I felt an overwhelming mix of rage and despair. I'd trusted her so much, and she'd thrown that away. I thought about all the good times, all the plans we'd made, shattered by her lies. I knew I had to make a decision, but honestly, I felt lost. Part of me wanted to hold on to the hope that she'd change, that maybe she'd see the error of her ways. But deep down, I knew I couldn't fix this. Not anymore. The betrayal ran too deep, and I was starting to realize how much I'd been taken for a fool. After that conversation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The rage was there, sure, but underneath it all was this crushing sense of betrayal and sadness. I couldn't believe she'd been lying to everyone, including her own family, while sneaking around with Mark. It felt like I'd been hit by a freight train, and I kept questioning everything about my marriage, about myself. Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs? How could I have been so blind? I spent a few days trying to piece everything together, trying to understand why she did it. Lisa had always been a little bitchy, manipulative, and she loved playing the victim whenever she was caught. But I never thought she'd go this far. I started talking to some friends, asking for advice, trying to keep my head clear. Most of them told me I deserved better, that I should just cut my losses and move on. But that was easier said than done. I loved her. I still did, even after everything. That love was a double-edged sword. It kept me hanging on despite all the pain. One thing that struck me hard was how she managed to spin everything around. She told her friends I was controlling, jealous, and paranoid, that I was insecure because I was worried about her working late or going out with friends. She painted herself as the victim, making me look like the bad guy. Meanwhile, I was sitting there knowing the truth, that she was out screwing her boss, lying to everyone, and manipulating me into thinking I was crazy. That realization made me angrier. It was like she had crafted this entire lie and I'd been the fool all along. I decided I had to see her again, something about needing closure. I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo, questioning everything. So I called her and told her I wanted one last talk. We met at her place, and I expected her to be defensive, maybe even call the cops if she thought I was going to accuse her again. But she just sat there calm, acting like everything was normal. She smiled that bitchy smile and tried to make me feel guilty. Said she loved me and that she'd never do anything to hurt me on purpose. She insisted she was sorry, that she'd change, that Mark was just a stupid mistake. That's when the anger really started to boil over. I looked her in the eyes and told her I didn't believe a word she said anymore, that I knew she'd been lying all along. I told her I was done with her manipulations, her lies, her betrayal. I said I was leaving and that I wanted her out of my house. Her face twisted in anger and she started crying, calling me all sorts of names, controlling, jealous, insecure. But I didn't care. I walked out that door and slammed it behind me. I left her standing there, furious and crying. That night I stayed up again, but this time filled with a strange mixture of relief and regret. Relief because I was finally free from her lies, but regret because I'd loved her once and felt like I'd lost a part of myself. I realized how much trust I'd given her, how much I'd believed in our life together, and now that it was gone, I didn't know who I was anymore. The worst part, knowing she was probably out there, already scheming her next move, trying to manipulate everyone around her into thinking she was the victim. It made me feel sick. I kept wondering how she could be so cold, so calculating, and so willing to destroy what we had for a quick fling with her boss. The days that followed were a blur. I spent most of my time in a fog trying to piece my life back together. I couldn't stop thinking about everything, how she'd lied, manipulated, and betrayed me so effortlessly. It felt like my world had been turned upside down, and I was just trying to find my footing again. I still loved her, I won't lie, but every time I thought about her with Mark, it made my stomach turn. It was a sickness, this feeling of betrayal, along with the anger that simmered just below the surface. I started doing things I never thought I'd do, reading about betrayal, trying to understand how someone could be so manipulative and selfish. I wanted to know if I was just some naive fool or if she really was that untrustworthy. The more I learned, the angrier I got. It was like she had been waiting for the perfect moment to stab me in the back, and she took it without a second thought. She spun her lies so well, so convincingly, that I nearly believed I was the one crazy. But I knew better now. I saw the truth clear as day. One day, I decided to confront her one last time. I called her and told her I wanted her out of my life for good, to get her to stop manipulating everyone and to end this circus. She agreed to meet me at a local park. When she showed up, dressed to impress, I could see her trying to act innocent. But I didn't buy it. I called her out on everything, her lies, her cheating, her manipulations. I told her I knew she'd been cheating on me for months with Mark, and that I'd uncovered every lie she told to everyone around us. Her face twisted in anger, but she still had that sneaky smile. She tried to deny everything, saying it was all just a misunderstanding, that Mark was just a work friend, and that I was being paranoid. She called me insecure, controlling, and said I was just jealous because I couldn't compete with Mark's charm. I stared at her, feeling my blood boil. I told her I didn't want to hear her bullshit anymore, that I'd be better off without her, and that I was filing for divorce. Her eyes started to water, and she threw a tantrum, screaming that I was ruining her life, that she loved me, and that I was overreacting. But I'd had enough. I told her to get lost, to never come back. As she walked away, crying and screaming at me, I felt this strange sense of relief. It was like I'd finally taken control of my life again. But underneath, there was still this deep sadness. The kind that eats at you when someone you trusted turns out to be so selfish and manipulative. I spent the next few days dealing with lawyers, sorting out the house, trying to clear my head. I was determined to move on, but it wasn't easy. The betrayal cut so deep, it left scars I knew would take a long time to heal. What I learned from all this is that some people are just good at lying and manipulating. Lisa was one of those people. She played the victim so well, I almost believed her until I saw the truth with my own eyes. Trust is a fragile thing, and now I realize that I should never have trusted her blindly. I wish I could have seen the signs earlier, but hindsight's always 20/20, right? If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And don't wait too long to confront it. Because once betrayal happens, it's not just about losing someone you love, it's about losing yourself a little at a time. Now, looking back, I realize that the emotional toll has been immense. At first, I was just angry, furious at her for the lies, for the betrayal, for wasting years of my life on someone who was playing me for a fool. But as the dust settled, I started to see things more clearly. I've learned that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully repair, and that some people are just inherently selfish and manipulative. Lisa proved to be one of those people, and I won't fall for her games again. Divorcing her was the hardest decision I've ever made, but also the best one. I've started to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I've cut out the toxic relationships, stopped the endless overthinking, and finally focused on myself. It's been a painful process, but I'd rather be alone than continue to be with someone who manipulates and uses me. I've come to accept that not everyone has good intentions and that sometimes love isn't enough to make things work. You have to have honesty, respect, and trust, things Lisa threw away without a second thought. If I could give any advice to someone in a similar situation, it's this. Don't ignore the signs. If your partner is hiding things, acting differently, or lying, pay attention. Trust your instincts. Once the trust is gone, it's almost impossible to get back. Protect yourself emotionally and physically, because betrayal cuts deep and it takes a long time to heal those wounds. Be strong enough to walk away if you have to, because staying will only prolong the pain. And most importantly, don't lose sight of your self-worth. Healing is possible, even after the worst betrayal. Today, I'm finally starting to move on. I still feel the sting of everything, but I'm also hopeful about what's ahead. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. This experience has taught me to value honesty above all else, and to realize that sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve your trust. Life goes on, and I believe better days are coming. I just hope anyone reading this learns to listen to their own voice, trust their gut, and never settle for anything less than honesty from the people they love.